Hello guys, and welcome back to another Tweaking Man video. So this is a new isolation product that I'm showing you today. Now this stuff is the product that you use to put on a driveway and then you fill it with stones, and it's a honeycomb construction. Yes, it's made from plastic, but that doesn't matter in this instance because it's very good. It's very thin walled and it's perfect for making an isolation table. So what we need to do this job now is we need 2 bits of plywood which are 5mm thick. We're going to need some thin bits of plywood on the edges. Well, I'll be using some thin bits of oak or birch, and we'll need some silicone sealant. Okay, so let's get into this video and I'll show you how we're going to do it. So first of all, the top part is slightly different from the underneath. So on these bits, this is where we're going to put our silicone. Okay, we're going to dab silicone on all the parts here, because plastic won't glue to wood very easy without putting silicone on it. You could cover the whole base in silicone, the whole piece of wood, but I'm going to be doing it this way, which I did on my other one, which I've already made, which is sounding really good. So go on to here. This silicone takes a little bit of time to dry, so, and then what we're going to be doing is some of the honeycomb sections we're going to be filling with silicone. So you will need a few tubes of this stuff. This plastic honeycomb section costs £8.50 here in the UK. You can get it from garden centres. I picked it up from a company called B&M, which is a relatively cheap company in this country that sells stuff, and they've got a gardening section. A bit there, a bit there. Now afterwards we'll be trimming this to size. Put all that on. Now you're going to need some heavy weights as well to weight this down afterwards. Keep going along like so. Now I've got a whole bucket of water because you need something really heavy to go on the surface of this to hold it flat. Okay, there we go. So let's just flip this over now. We want to put it down onto the surface here. It doesn't matter if it oozes out the sides. Now I've cut these pieces of wood very similar to the size of this. Bring it over slightly because I want to trim it up afterwards. Make sure it's all pushed down extremely well. So I'm going to bring it this way a little bit. Needs to come over this way a bit. Right, so what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to put some crisscross bits in the middle here, just some small bits, so when it goes down it will sit on those. I'll show you it in a minute. Just help it to adhere to the plywood. A couple there in the middle there, and there, maybe. Right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the bucket of water on the surface. That's about right. That's nearly there. It seems to be right. So let's lift this bucket of water up. It's full up with water. I'm going to put that down there and really bring it over a bit. Really push that down. And then I'm going to do my normal thing. Tins of beans all over the surface of it now. Tins of beans. So, beans, soup, anything you've got just to weight it down. Okay, push these bits of silicone down with your fingers and just wipe it off after, all around there, just so it helps to adhere the plastic to the plywood. Now I think silicone's the best thing to use for this. Right, so I'll be carrying on putting more tins around that. Here we have all the tins around it. Heinz tomato soup, all sorts of soups, and this full bucket of cold water. Now that puts a hell of a lot of weight, and the reason I've done it is this tabletop is solid oak and it's extremely flat. So we're going to leave that to dry. When you've seen me do the other type of isolation table, I sandwich the two together. But the reason I'm not doing that is these sections are all going to be filled up, some with silicone. So I'll be back probably after around about 8 hours to remove these. So stay tuned, I'll be back soon. I've added some PVA glue to the bottom of these little plastic bits that cross over, just to firm it up even more. So while I'm waiting for the rest of the isolation table to glue up, we need to PVA the back of this top plate here. Okay, because there's not so much for the silicone to glue onto. So what we want to do is seal this with PVA and leave it to dry. It's all got to have a really good I'll put this out in the sun, it'll dry really quick today. Right, so this is that's about right. So we will leave that to dry now for a couple of hours, and then we will turn our attention to moving all these tins and a whole bucket of water off of the top. And that should all be dried nicely on there now, so we'll be back soon. So I filled one of these honeycomb squares up with with all-purpose silicone. And what I want to do is I've got to go around and I'll show you how to do it now. Just pump it up. You're going to take a few tubes of this to fill it up. And then you're going to need a piece of something flat. So I'm using a cabinet scraper here. There we go. Push it out like that. So now that is totally filled up, and that one, and I shall carry on going along and filling the rest up, and I'll show you what it looks like once I've done that. So I've finished filling the silicone up round here. It's taken 6 tubes of silicone. As you can see, it's quite a lot, and this is the silicone that I used. This comes from Toolstation here in the UK. So by the time I've glued the top on, I'll be using another tube of this, so that'll be 7 tubes, so it works out to around about £35 for the silicone. You can get it cheaper than this if you buy it online. You can buy 9 tubes for around about £33, which is more than 7. So, but anyway, this is going to have to be left for a few days now, because these silicone honeycomb squares, I'm not entirely sure what you call them, but they honeycomb sections, they will take ages to dry, because this is about 1.5 inches deep of silicone. And then once that's dry, we'll be filling the other sections up with another product, which I'll show you then. Okay, be back soon. So I've used lots of multi-purpose silicone over the years, and this one is the best I've used so far. Just the way it comes out and spreads, it really does do a good job. So if you can get hold of this make, that would be the best to use for this job. I've left this silicone now to dry over a few days now. It's been about 3 days. It's quite firm now. It's very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to be filling the rest of this up with this stuff, which is a bio cat litter. And then this is made of light cellulose paper granules, and it works really well for this project. So we're going to need some silicone still to finish this off, the square and the lid there. So let's get this onto the tripod and get going. So what we're going to do is we're just going to be using this cat litter all over. Spread it all out nice and even. You can pile quite a lot on and spread it out, and then push each section down individually. Let's give this a bit of a spread out. Making sure we don't get anything over the silicone. Right, so need a couple more along this edge there, more along here, more along here. Probably do it now. There we go. Still trying a little bit more there. spend a bit of time, make sure you get it all spread out evenly, and crunch it all down, because when you put the top section on, we don't want anything being lumpy or bumpy. That's probably there now. Can always spread it out. I don't think that's going to work like that now. Just push it all down with your hands. Make sure it's all compacted in. Right, now I think that's it there as far as that's concerned. Now what we need to do next is to get our silicone and run some nice thick beads all over it. There we go, that's looking pretty smart now. So this product, the base of this product, the plastic, is used for driveways or walkways or anywhere you want to just lay that down and fill it in with stones. Right, so let's get the silicone going. Make sure there's no bits sticking up on here. I mean, it will press down, but so we'll just go around the edge here. Now I'm going to put some big blobs all over there like that. Be careful not to, like I've done there, it's popped it up. That's it, that'll be right there. So we're putting these blobs on the plastic bits at the top here. Get as many on as you can. A bit more silicone on these bits here. This silicone has a slight salty smell about it. More on there. I want to make sure this is really well glued down. Right, I think that's probably it now. A bit more there. A bit more there. Right, that's it. Right, so now get our top. Okay, we need to. Right, so that's the front. So now what we're going to do is just get our square here, put it down our bevel. We're going to push that up like that. Want to make sure it's all squared around. And a good way of doing that also is to now push it up against the wall there, so we make sure that we've got I want to do it that way round. That's the way I want to do it. So I made it slightly bigger, but I want the front to be, make sure that's all there, that's about right. Push that over very slightly. We're going to run this round the linisher after, the disc sander I should say, just to make sure it's all level after. Take your time on this bit, don't rush it, because this is the bit you need to get right, because we've got to put a lip in all around the edge of it afterwards. Right, okay, so now what I'm going to do now that's like that, bring it back slightly, and now we're going to put some weights on the top of that now, lots of weight. So we've got that all weighted down again with loads of tins and lots of water bottles. I'm just going to leave that to dry now for another day. So this video is very long-winded, it takes a while to do it, so I'll be back tomorrow to remove all of the products. And oh look, there's Milo the jazz dog, he's just come in. Milo, say hello to the viewers. Milo, Milo, come on Milo, say hello to the viewers. Hey, what you doing Milo? Hey, what you doing lad? You been listening to jazz all night again? Yeah, good boy. Good boy, Milo. So I decided to add some clamps around the edge because it was lipping up a little bit on the edges. So again, this is going to need to be left now, as I say, for a good day, maybe a couple of days. So I'll be back then. So I've now removed all the clamps from this and now what we need to do is to brace it all around with our 3mm ply. Okay, so what I'm going to do is cut a piece of 3mm ply here, and then I'm just going to trim it back on the disc sander. It just helps it from splitting out at the sides, so we don't want it splitting out, so we just trim it down like that. Okay, so I've made it slightly bigger from side to side so I can trim it down on the sander after. So what we need to do now is we want to get our best side, this side here. Want to put the glue on, just PVA again. If you're new to the channel, this is the one I prefer. It dries extremely fast, and it makes you be able to get on with the project opposed to having to wait 4 to 6 hours. It cures quite quickly within a good hour. So I'll just spread it out with my finger like that. I want plenty of glue on this, especially on the edges, because this is the part where the where it touches the other plywood. Right, okay, so what we do, we've got that in place now. We just get some masking tape. I'll bring this up to the edge. I'll just get that in place like that first. Right, that's that. And then what I'm going to do is I'll crack on and cut the other one and glue that on, and then we'll put some clamps across this time, just to clamp it up. You can just glue it with the leave it with the masking tape on, but I'll just give it some clamps this time just to make sure it's all good. So I'll be back in a second and I'll show you that. So I've got the sash clamps on now. Just cleaned a bit of glue up along there with a wet rag, and we're going to leave this now for an hour, and then we'll be back to do the side bits. So I've taken the clamps off, and I've planed the overhang down, and now what we need to do is just to put our other struts now on the front and on the back again. I mean, for some of you that have been following my channel before, you will know the way I make these anyway. I mean, this one obviously is a new design compared to the previous ones, but this is but just carry on watching and then I'll show you how this is done now. So we need to put it down there. That's it. Never be afraid to put too much glue on. You can just wipe it off after when it oozes out, when you start clamping it up. So we'll always cover the whole surface with glue, not just a bead. The whole surface needs to be covered. Right, so that's that. Now I just need to do this one. Let's move this up here, and then we're going to do the same thing. So I'll glue the other one on, and I'll be back in a second. So now all we need to do is to start clamping this over now. Make sure that that's big enough. You never have enough sash clamps. Way too many. Right, bring that back there. Pick that up with your fingers. For now, where's that? Oh, there's that thing on there. Wait. Get a little tightening up. Then the next one at this end. And we want 2 more of these across here. Let's just find that all around. I've always got way too much stuff on my bench. I'm a bit of a messy worker. Right, that's it. So we're going to leave that to dry now for a couple of hours, and we'll be back once that's dried. So here we have the other edges on at the front now. We're just going to leave these to dry. I'm not going to finish this till the morning now. This video is taking quite a while to do. It's quite complicated what's gone into the inside of this. So I'll be back tomorrow, so stay tuned. All the clamps, and I've planed up all the edges, all the excess that stuck up, so I could get it dead level. And now I've just run a bit of fill around. I always like doing a bit of filler, especially on the edge of plywood, because you get tiny little chip outs when you're planing it down. So I'm going to leave that to dry, sand that up, and then I'll be back, and then I'll show you how to finish the base part of this isolation. So this is the isolation table, totally made, all finished, lovely. Both sides. It's extremely solid and it's quite weighty. It's got a lot of mass to it. So this is a totally different design to the lightweight type. But it's because of all the silicone inside there, it weighs quite a bit. So what we want to do now is we want to put a strut both ways, one across here and one across there. So this really gives it rigidity. And so I'm going to just grab myself a pencil quick, and then a tape measure, if I can find one. There's one there. Okay, so we'll just come up to here like that, move that over for a minute. We want to just measure across here. Right, so we can go about 26. If we make it slightly bigger, then we can trim it down. Nothing worse than making things too big and then not being able to do too small, and then not being able to cut anything down. Right, that's that. Let's find a square. And I could use my chop saw, but I won't. I'll just cut it by hand again. And then what I can do is then just make sure it's totally squared up on the on the disc sander there. So we'll just come back there. Right, so that's that. So then I'm going to just finish this off on the disc sander. So we've got another piece here. Again, these are balustrades or spindles, but they're not obviously spindles, they're squares. But these are for staircases. So I always try to produce stuff that's readily available for people, because there's nothing worse than not being able to. So what I'm going to do now is just a mark under here, each side there. Try to go underneath if I can. Don't always work like that. There we go. I need a small piece. That'll do it. That side there. As I say, I'm very unorthodox in my style. Being dyslexic, I couldn't go to college, and so that didn't work. So what I do is I always made up my own ideas on how to do stuff. So this is another one. There we go. Let's do that again now. Get that in place. So I'm off to see my uncle today in his care home. He is the audiophile that it inspired me. Right, there we go. So now what we're going to do is just to shore those lines up a bit with the edge of the square there. And then I shall just cut those with the saw. nearly there. Put that off of there. And now just cut this side now again, and then we'll just sand these up, tickle them in on the disc sander. So I'm going to sand those up and I'll be back in a second. So I've trimmed all those up. They're really sanded the ends up. Now what we want to do is we want to put a piece of, we want to get some glue going on the underneath of this here. Okay. And as I say, with glue, you want to make sure you spread it evenly all over. Don't worry, you can wipe off any excess that squeezes out with a wipe or a damp cloth. And then when we do the final sanding on it at the end, but I won't bother showing you that. I'm going to get it to this stage, and then I'm going to decide. Let you decide whether you put spikes on the underneath of it, or you put some oak cones. They would be probably the preferred, but the problem with oak cones is you won't be able to level it. So if you want to level it, then you need to put spikes on the underneath. Right, so we've got that in place there. Give it a sort of good rubbing down like that. It will want to move because it's got glue underneath it. And then we want to get our clamp here. Don't worry about, I'm not putting anything. Well, actually, I can do. See what I'll do. Cut those bits there. Put one on there. Then the other one underneath, just to help it from not getting any damage to the wood itself. Sometimes I don't bother. I just sand it afterwards. I want to make sure once we get this in place, we want to adjust it slightly and make sure it's perfect. So you can see it wanting to move. See it? It's moving like all over the place. But I don't want to put any screws in at this moment. I just want to glue it. Send that up there, that's a bit better. Get that into place there. See, it still wants to move. It's moving all over the place. Right, let's just do the same with this end. So I've now cut the other bits and I shall glue them up as well. Very simple again. Just get some glue onto the surface here. And just spread it all out with your finger, or you can use a brush. You want plenty of glue over. Right, and then we want to work this into place. As I say, don't worry about the glue oozing out. We can just wipe all that off. Right, so I'll do the other one and I'll be back soon. So it's now all glued up, so I'll leave that to glue up and then we'll show you what it looks like once it's finished. So I've now finished the isolation table and I've put screws in the top there because I want the whole lot to be bolted down onto the crisscross sections on the underneath. So here we have the underneath. This is extremely heavy. Well, I say extremely heavy, it weighs 14.2 pounds. So this has a dead sound around the edge of it where all the silicone is. and in the centre it has it's not as dead as the sides, purely because those paper pellets help to absorb vibration and disperse them into the silicone around the edge. So you can hear the difference in sound, which is exactly what I was after. So the core material, the hexagon honeycomb material that I used in the centre of it, is used for driveways. So you put that down and then you put gravel over the top of it, and then you can drive your car in and out without the gravel going everywhere. So I should put everything you need to build this isolation table in the description below. So if you've noticed, there's nothing on each corner yet. So I'm going to be putting spikes on there. I haven't got the spikes yet, but you can put small oak cones on there. You could put felt pads, but the oak cones and the spikes work the best. So this isolation table, it works really well with turntables. It also works well with CD players or SACD players or Blu-ray players, anything that's spinning. So you get woo and flutter that tends to vibrate through the equipment. And this is where this works really well with. You can also use it for amplifiers and virtually anything. But those two are it works the best with. So I hope you like the build. It's taken me ages. There's a lot of work that goes into building this, and it's real quality. So I think that's that with this video. So I hope you like it, and thanks for watching another Tweaker Man video. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to give this video a like. Don't forget to press that notification bell so you're notified each time I upload a new video. And thank you for watching, guys.